1. The day I was hired and fired by a law firm. So this is about 5 years ago. I worked as a chef at a bakery. It was my job to make everything but the baked goods. Every morning the baker and I would walk in at about 4 a.m. and knock out all the food needed for the day. This would leave me ready to go home around 10 a.m. or so. This put us at the perfect time to deliver online orders. It was common for companies or other entities to place large catering orders with us. The baker and I would split them down the middle and deliver them on our way home. The delivery in question was for Bob, Dick, and Harry, attorneys at law. I have never delivered to BD&H before, but they were a regular of sorts. Every financial quarter, they would hold a huge meeting. This meeting would require roughly $700 of bagels and bagel accessories. This spread included 8 dozen bagels, all 10 of our flavors of
cream cheese, pastries, brownies, and enough coffee to power a college dorm through finals week. My passenger seat, entire back seat, and entire trunk are filled with food. Now BD&H is located on the 9th floor of a commercial skyscraper deep in an industrial complex downtown. Parking was non-existent. There were meters outside the building, but I knew I would need close to 10 trips to deliver all this food, and didn't have a lot of change on me. Company policy was to just pay whatever fines I needed to park and then turn in my receipts. The money would end up on my next paycheck. So the building has its own parking garage, so I pull on in. The security guard, let's call him Sam, stops me and says that the parking garage is for employees only. I happily show him my delivery invoice and offer him a bribery bagel. Never leave the store without at least 2. Sam refuses the bagel and says I can park in one of the guest spots on the bottom floor. The fee is $5 for every 30 minutes, minimum $10. I thank him and head to the bottom floor of the garage. So there are a total of 6 guest parking spaces. Just 6. All of them are taken. I head back up to talk to Sam when I see an open parking spot reserved for Bob, Dick, and Harry, attorneys at law. There are cars in every spot, with many spots being reserved for employees by name. The last spot is empty and is reserved for guest of BD&H. Perfect. I pull on in. I grab the most important part of the delivery, the coffee, and head to the stairwell. I get into the elevator and hit the button for floor 9. The elevator asked for my employee ID card. Well, crud. So, I try the lobby. That works. From there, it's 9 flights of stairs until I am outside the law firm of Bob, Dick, and Harry. After introducing myself, I am shown to the room where the meeting will take place. A table is set aside for me. I set down the coffee and head for trip number 2. That is when I see Sam talking to that receptionist. He runs over and starts shouting at me.
I am putting a boot on your F-car. I told you to park in guest on the bottom floor.
I don't get a word in before he launches into a speech about security and how I could be hurting his building or people. That is when a very well-dressed man walks over. It so happens to be Bob, the Bob of Bob, Dick and Harry's. Bob asks what is the problem, and soon the two are arguing. Bob, OP is delivering food for my meeting. He is allowed to use my parking spots. Sam, those parking spots belong to the building. You are leasing them like you lease this floor. I am the one who says who can park there. He isn't an employee, so he isn't parking. Bob, then I am making him an employee. Sam, you can't do that. Bob, you know what? You are right. Harry, get over here. Harry walks over with an amused look on his face. Bob, Harry here is the head of our HR department. Harry, hire this boy. Harry pulls out a piece of paper and scribbles. OP is now a member of Bob, Dick, and Harry's and signs it, then asks me to sign as well. I do so. Bob reaches over to the receptionist, who is already grabbing some things. Bob, here's your employee badge, your parking permit, and your elevator key card. Now please do the job I have hired you to do and deliver my bagels. Sam looks on in utter fury as I ride the elevator down to my car. 7 sweet elevator rides later, all the food is delivered. Bob and Harry meet me at the table. Bob, OP, you have made great strides in this company and I am proud of your work, but I feel it is time for us to part ways. Here is your final check. Bob then hands me a crisp $50 bill. Harry, and your severance package. Now please be sure to return your badge and card on the way out. Harry hands me $20 and sends me on my way. The receptionist is sure to validate the parking ticket that Sam gave me, and I head on out. On the way out, Sam grins at me and asks for my ticket. I place it in the machine in his station. It sees the validation I got and lets me out for free. Sam glares at me as I drive off into the late morning sun. Story 2. My neighbors wanted to call a professional to mark their property line. My parents agreed. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our house and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure there was no way it was on our neighbor's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor, he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next month, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbor ended up losing $1/4 of his backyard. My neighbor ended up having to pay almost $10K for the destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. Story 3. Bank won't make change. I close my account instead. This happened a few years ago. I was working at a large national chain restaurant as a manager. I was asked to temporarily reassign to a location in a city about an hour away, and accepted. They put me up in a hotel the whole 9 yards. The first weekend I was there, I discovered that the GM had screwed up and not ordered any change, small bills and rolls of coins for the safe, and that the local branch of our bank would be closing in the next hour. I also happened to have a personal account at the same bank and had in the past gone and gotten change from the branch back home. Since time was tight, I quickly looked up the address of the bank, grabbed $800 and jumped in my car. I get to the bank, wait in line, and then ask them to make change, $400 in $5 bills, $300 in $1 bills, and $100 in assorted rolled coins. The teller tells me that the bank doesn't make change. Me, thinking it was because they didn't know me, informed her that our restaurant had an account she could look up. She then told me, "No, we don't make change at all." The thought going through my brain was, WTF, you are a bank. I tried explaining the situation, but was quickly shot down. I left, went back to my car, then had an idea. I went back inside the bank with my personal checkbook, got to the front of the line, and, luckily, the same teller. Before she could even greet me, I held out my checkbook and told her, "I would like to close this account since this bank is no longer customer service oriented." She kind of rolled her eyes, but went about my request. Then she asked how I wanted my cash back. An automatic response, I'm sure, and one I was counting on. I said $400 and $5 East, $300 and $1 ES, $70 in rolled quarters, $25 in rolled dimes, $4 in rolled nickels, and $1 in rolled pennies. The rest can be on a cashier's check. No reason for her to deny it, so I got my change. And the following Monday I returned, closed out the other 2 accounts I had there, and I opened accounts at a different bank where I have been banking ever since.